thank you all for joining. And yeah, thank you, Chris and RedLine13 for inviting myself and ACT to be a part of this event. So yeah, very thankful for that. Um, let's see if my slides work, then we're off to an even better start. Here we go. All right. So my name's Heath Meyer. I am a lead software engineer at ACT. I'm sure that acronym is familiar to most folks here and abroad. So we're the college entrance exam counterpart to the SAT, not to be confused with them. We're the ACT. And I've been working with ACT for 17 plus years now, so quite some time. And I've been a part of the automation / performance test group since the get-go. So yeah, got quite a bit of time in and experience in those two areas, more so on the functional automation side, but a pretty good handful of experience on the performance side as well. So, and today I'm going to be talking about kind of our move to RedLine13 and kind of a high level approach of, why we did that, what kind of drove that move, and some of the benefits and pluses that we've seen from that move in the past few years that we've been on that journey with RedLine13. So, and actually, before I continued, I wanted to call out David. I think the first speaker, David, mentioned Mercury Interactive, and I just happened to have, I don't know if David's still on, but I got a Mercury Interactive. This is what the old CDs came in from back in the day. So that shows that I'm kind of an oldie but a goodie as well. So yeah, we used to use QTP, Quick Test Pro, and whatnot back in the days. So that was a good reminiscence for me. Thanks for shouting that out, David. That was a good kind of trip back in time for myself. So yeah, so let's continue on with the slideshow. So the initial phases, like what caused us to look at other products. Well, as a lead software engineer, we're on this automation. We're kind of an auxiliary group, an automation specialized group that helps to support all of our Scrum teams, which have embedded software engineers within that focus on functional automation and performance testing. And this auxiliary group that I'm in that helps support a lot of those tools and process and standards and best practices and all that kind of stuff. We do periodic explorations. So as you know, within our industry, and I just held up that Mercury Interactive box, things change and things change rapidly within our industry. And so if you are not looking out for the latest and greatest, whether or not it's a new shiny thing or not, you should always be exploring and understanding what's out there and what's available, because if you're stagnant with the product, you're going to get left behind pretty quick, and you may miss some opportunities from a cost perspective and efficiency perspective, and just anything else that comes along with, the reasons why there are new things available in the market. So we do periodic explorations. It's typically every 6 to 12 months. We'll see what's out there, and that doesn't mean we jump ship and switch to those new things, but we want to see what the trends are and what people are leaning towards and what's popular within the industry. So that was part of the reason that we found RedLine13 among other dashboards and products in the performance testing realm. But another reason too was Python support. So our functional automated testers, they code in Python. Our developers code in Java. So we wanted to look for something that supported Python and had that ability to potentially generate some additional reuse from an API automation standpoint, and just also a knowledge standpoint with our existing automation that was already available that we could potentially leverage within another performance ecosystem. So that was a big part of it as far as our POC. We're not fully there, I wouldn't say, but that was a big reason why we said, yeah, this tool makes sense, RedLine13. And then, of course, from a cost perspective, having been a manager at some point in my tenure, from the top down, that's, dollars are important to management. And so as we explored different tools, the entry fee for RedLine13 was real low. And of course, there's additional costs when you start actually doing your testing and performing those tests. But as we did like an analysis on that and kind of did an apples to apples with our existing platform that we were on, and then potentially switching to RedLine13, we saw there was going to be significant savings as we're in the AWS and we already, have the infrastructure and the team that manages that for us. So from a cost standpoint, it really made sense for us. We were with our previous dashboard that we were using. I don't want to name names, but we were hitting ceilings with that contract, and then we would actually have to, append or do some additional cost on top of what our base contract was, and that was a big flat fee. Whereas the Redline approach, which I've talked to Chris about, to me it's kind of like the cell phone plans where it's a pay as you go. So you buy your phone, you get your base, your phone, but then your pay as you go, you can say, well, this month I'm going to use X amount of minutes, or next month I'm going to use X amount of minutes or data or whatever. Versus the other guys where it was kind of an upfront cost. You paid that cost no matter what, and whether you use those minutes or that data or whatever, you were out that money at the end of the month or the year or whatnot. So that was really appealing to us, as we do quite a bit of performance testing, but if we have some slow times, then we're not paying for that. But if we have some times where we're potentially going against that ceiling with previous dashboards, then we had that flexibility to kind of go over and manage those costs or self-manage those costs. So that was a big plus for us in exploring Redline13. So jumping down to the next part there, what were some of the considerations for a good performance product? Cost was definitely at the top. As I just talked about, ease of use. We were able to get up into Redline13 and ramp up pretty darn quick. I would say, it was just a handful of weeks when we were able to get that stood up and then start doing our POC and seeing if that was the right tool for us. So ease of use was a big factor. Support, Redline13 being a smaller company in general was super awesome for us in the sense that we could reach out to, Chris and the folks directly, get some feedback. At the beginning we had some things to learn. They were real responsive in helping us get to learn those things and pointing us to, some documentation and areas that, helped us continue with our POC. And just being a smaller company, that was a real plus. Whereas the previous company, you'd write up a support ticket, ask for some information. It'd take a day or two to get that response. And by that time, you're already starting to fall behind on what your tasks were. So that was a big plus for us as well. And then ability to leverage existing scripts. Kind of touched on that. JMeter, being kind of the go-to for most performance testing. We already had a lot of that in our previous dashboard. So that just kind of transposed quite nicely to Redline13, as well as some of our Python automation that we wanted to try out and test as well. And then I also mentioned earlier the infrastructure perspective. So we're already in AWS, and that made life a lot easier for us to make that transition as well. So next slide. So the evaluation, we did a pilot. We still had work to do performance wise, so we stayed in our existing tool. But then at the same time, we did a kind of an apples to apples with Redline. We'd actually run tests, the same tests in both platforms, verify that our results were pretty consistent, and then we'd analyze the cost of those runs. And just, the efficiencies of, one platform versus the other, the ability for the reports to be easily read and shared and used among the Scrum teams, which is ultimately the most important thing for the developers in those teams to then, start to uncover bottlenecks and fix things. So that was very important to us during the pilot. So doing that apples to apples was a real good benefit for us. And we saw, again, I think it was mainly from a cost perspective, we saw a lot of advantages. And as far as other capabilities, Redline, was right in line with our previous tool. The pilot results, yeah, the ability to leverage existing scripts with minimal effort. That was important again. I can't reinforce that enough. Tool and execution cost was dramatically reduced. We do an annual kind of checkup on our costs, and we're still far below what we were paying for the previous product, being on RedLine13. And of course, that'll vary based on the size of your company and the amount of performance tests you run. But our company, we have it's over a dozen Scrum teams, and most of them run some level of performance tests on all their teams. And cost wise, we're seeing again significant savings from that. It's more in our control now, which is awesome. And then existing dashboard has more capabilities. We're still be able to, anything that was potentially not in RedLine13 that was in our previous dashboard, those were either, nice to haves, or we could kind of circumvent and still get the things done that we needed based on, some of the AWS tools we already had in place and how we leverage those as well. So, and again, Redline's still growing and becoming stronger. So some of those things will continue to come into fruition. But again, with those, bigger, more mainstream dashboards, we felt Redline, was right in line and did exactly what we needed to do. So then we had the transition. Once we agreed on actually moving to RedLine13, there was a period of time where we had to make that transition and start to cut off the old systems and the old ways of doing things and move over. So the script reuse, again, made that transition very easy and very streamlined. Again, with the Python support, we're making that transition. We would have been doing that either way. So that's no fault of RedLine13. That's something that we've just been in the process of doing as well. But again, the support of the major, languages and tools out there for performance testing, that they have most all of that. So that made it super easy. Again, already in AWS, so we were able to leverage, our knowledge in there and to be able to make that transition easy. So that was pretty awesome. And then, earlier I said it took us weeks. Yeah, I think we figured it was about a 3-month duration for the pilot, from beginning, getting it up and running, and then to the end where we said, yeah, we need to start switching over and making that transition. So from a pilot standpoint, that was a pretty rapid development for us. And we saw those efficiencies and those benefits pretty darn quick. So, so how easy was it? Yeah, RedLine13 support, again, they helped us move as needed. So that made it super easy. There wasn't much on our side as far as hiccups or whatnot. It was just timing. And so that was awesome. Documentation, their website, they have all the, kind of the general areas of support, and a lot of great articles written out there to help you, kind of get in line and on board. And then the dashboard simplicity, again, the Scrum teams ultimately have to use this. So the dashboard being real simple and streamlined, having your kind of your simple view for creating a job or just go ahead and cloning an existing job and then being up and running was super awesome. And then being able to, tweak that and go further if needed for, whatever situations those teams have was very beneficial for us. And then settling in. So other things we had to make considerations of, anytime you move to a new potentially language tool or system or, dashboard or whatnot, there's always training involved. Again, they had some great documentation already we could point our users to. We created some additional internal documentation to help out the developers and testers within the Scrum teams. The other thing we had to address too was technical versus non-technical. So within those teams, they're mostly developers / testers, but then you have some other folks as well. Being able to get them in there and easily understand, this is green, things are good. You can tell what's going on. You can drill down into that documentation as needed, or what they're most concerned about is something's yellow or red. Hey, we got to check into this, and I want to be able to share those reports and get this resolved as soon as possible. So that was something we had to kind of work with the teams on from a training perspective. Standards, again, I'm on the team that helps develop those things. So RedLine13 is ultra flexible, which, has its pros and cons. It's harder to kind of rein people in and keep them on the same page as far as naming conventions or standards, or where do you put stuff within the dashboard. But yeah, so we developed some of those standards, put those on our wiki out there, and for the most part, folks have been following that. So it's easy to find within a certain team, certain tests, and and find those results real easily. So the thing we really liked was the integrated tags. That makes it real easy to kind of sort and categorize things. And then again, naming conventions kind of go along with that, as I said. And then I already talked about sharing reports to the Scrum team. So that's ultimately what they're looking for, is the results of those runs and resolving any potential bottlenecks or issues. So, and then the benefits. So, we switched, for a reason, and some of the short-term benefits again were savings. We saved a lot of money in the short term, and even after being in it for a couple of years now, we're still reaping those benefits as far as cost savings, and we're really happy with the tool and the dashboard, and we love seeing different things being implemented, different features that are making it even better for us and you guys as well. Single sign-on being one of those that's super beneficial from a management standpoint. And some of the other things that Redline's been, adding to their tool set there. And the turnaround, the next extremely quick implementation. So yeah, just being able to get into that real quick into Redline13 and be off and running with minimal effort has been a lifesaver for us. And again, leveraging AWS features and functionality. Minimal training impacts. I think we had probably 2 to 4 training sessions in general for most of the software engineers. And by that time, they were all off and running. And also by that time, we had some good kind of base tests that had already been executed and proofed out. So again, with the clone feature, folks could just kind of grab those pieces, replace their JMX or whatever they needed to do to that job to get it running for what they're looking for. And that made it real simple and easy to get those teams self-sufficient and up and running. So, and then from vendor support, again, Redline being smaller, we feel like we have that great support from those folks. Our previous vendor, we had a few hiccups with those folks. One of the big ones was we were going to run some performance tests one day, and they had implemented a change to the dashboard, which actually broke what we were trying to do. But we didn't get any heads up that they were actually deploying or changing these things, unfortunately. So that unfortunately created a loss of trust in a sense for us a bit. That's not the only reason we moved, but that didn't leave a good taste in our mouth. So good communication, good support, good, kind of heads up as things are evolving or changing is always a good thing for the customer, especially if it's going to potentially impact their performance testing, which is important. And then benefits long-term. Yeah. Like I say, Redline13 is still, I don't want to say fairly new, but they're evolving and growing and moving in the right direction. So it's cool to be a part of that. And, we're excited to see where this goes and how it makes, benefits us and our testing here at ACT. And then also too, more of a long-term benefit will be, as I talked about earlier, Python or Selenium, and streamlining that and potentially consolidating different types of potential functional tests with performance tests, and leveraging, API testing that we do in both arenas, and yeah, just making our code base more efficient and simpler. So. In closing, we're very happy with our move to Redline13 from our previous dashboard. And we love seeing things, evolve and grow in the right direction. And we're very thankful to be a part of kind of this journey with everybody here. And yeah, appreciate you guys listening. And yeah, I'll start looking at the questions here.
Great. All right. Thanks, Heath.
Thanks, Chris.
All right. So folks, post your questions. You can either just simply post it, or you can come on stage, and it sounds very formal and official to be on stage, but it's really just you get to actually ask the question, and which is sometimes can be a lot easier than trying to type one out. So while folks are doing that, Heath, you mentioned some of the different groups that are involved from a performance testing point of view.
Yeah.
Could you just kind of explain that a little bit? Because I think it's kind of interesting how there's a lot of different people that are involved in one way or another from performance testing.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, back in the day when we used like LoadRunner and some of the other performance testing tools, we had a dedicated performance testing team as well as a dedicated automation team. So they were kind of siloed and separated out from, and this was pre-Scrum Agile. So, things were more siloed back then. We had a group dedicated to those types of tasks, which I'm sure a lot of other companies kind of had that approach as well. But as we moved towards Scrum Agile, then the team started taking on those responsibilities, and those efforts were embedded within each of the groups. So, in Scrum, teams are responsible for what they commit to, and that's what they say they're going to do is what they do. And so it was kind of a tough process to get performance embedded within those teams, because we were just so accustomed to it being kind of this additional extra thing that kind of occurred at the end of the process, which is never a good thing. We're always trying to left shift things, but that's tough to do. It's tough to get buy-in. It's tough to get that knowledge shared with all the teams. But as the Scrum teams grew and got stronger with their base code set of just functional automation, I think that helped them to become more confident in performance testing. And so we were gradually able to hand those tasks off to each of the teams. And again, some teams do more performance testing than others. There's probably, I'd say, 2 to 4 of those teams which are heavy in performance testing. But there's probably another handful out of those dozen plus that are doing periodic performance testing. But it's some level. And again, it's that ownership of, all development and testing are their responsibility for what they're doing and what they're going to deliver. So it's great to see that. And it's kind of just a great, ownership for those teams. I think it makes them feel more empowered as a team and as individuals. So it's cool to see that.
Right. All right. We have a question from Janesh. He asks, what other features would you like to see in RedLine13? Now, you did briefly mention single sign-on.
Yeah.
I would think it's probably fair to say that most folks don't even know that Redline actually has single sign-on. And you could just kind of explain how you were part of the beta and that you're using that. But then also talk about, what are some of the things you'd like to see coming down the road?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm trying to remember, because initially when we were working with you guys, we had kind of a short list of features we'd love to see. And as with any other third-party type software, single sign-on is pretty important from like an Active Directory, like user management perspective, and also security. Because, when you're using third-party systems and there isn't that, potentially as people come and go, they're still in those systems, or or forgetting passwords, or so single sign-on is important for corporations, I believe, because then you can manage those users as they're offboarded or onboarded. You can easily add them or remove them from third-party systems such as RedLine13 or anything else. So that was a very important thing for us from the get-go. And like you said, Chris, we started talking to you guys about that early on, and as of late, that's come to fruition. So that's been super awesome for us, at the corporate level. So we appreciate that from you guys. And yeah, sorry I let the cat out of the bag, but yeah, maybe other people will you know, be interested in that as well, and you know, say, hey, yeah, Chris, give me that. So.
How about what are some of the other things you would like to see? I mean, I think in fairness, you know, we're always looking to, you know what else people would like. So.
Yeah, and to be honest, I'm probably the wrong person to ask this right now. One of my other coworkers, Anita, she's a little more directly involved with the, you know, the management of Redline13 for our Scrum teams currently. I'm on some other tasks, but I know we have a short list of, you know, things that we'd like to have. But the thing we love about Redline13 too is it does what it needs to do without too much extra stuff, right? So from a performance testing perspective, there's only so many things that I need to do per se. And like I say, you know, like, you know, being able to execute a test in a certain flavor of tool, JMeter typically being that, and then being able to see my results quickly and easily, and then be able to share those with the teams. You know, that's probably the most important part to us. There's always going to be other nice to haves, but you know, I'm sure there's a couple that I'm not thinking of right now that we've probably maybe talked to you guys about, but yeah.
But if I remember right, wasn't the tags feature, wasn't that something that you guys asked for? Or
yeah. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, so that was another thing we had asked for early on, and you guys were real responsive and receptive to. And that being because all of our team members were within one team inside of Redline13. So we wanted some way to easily differentiate team 1, team 2, team 3, you know, tag your stuff with those team names. And then if I want to get in there and I just want to see what team 1's up to and how things are going, or if I'm on that team, I only care about what's, you know, on team 3. Or team 1 or team 2, then I can filter on that, and I only see what I'm concerned about. So it was just another nice way, kind of like in Gmail, to be able to, you know, segment things and be able to easily drill down and find what you're looking for without much effort. We initially started using just the names of our tests, and we had a real kind of stringent way that we were asking the teams, you know, to have the name of their test be the team name underscore the test type underscore the volume, like 50,000 users underscore the run. So that was a little more difficult. Some teams still adhere to that kind of standard. But again, they're Scrum teams. They're free to do what they need to do to get their work done. But you also want some level of consistency. So if I'm moving from one team to another, or if I'm not a part of any team, but I want to hop in and see what's going on, it just makes that easier. And tags, you know, definitely helped us with that. Like I say, since we're all kind of in one bucket, it was easy to break that out and get what you're looking for more easily.
Great. All right, Heath. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
For presenting, and I'm sure I'll be talking to you soon.
Thank you again. Thanks all.